Hello, my name is Kevin Floyd, a technical marketing engineer with the Security Technologies Group at Cisco Systems. We are pleased to have you join us on this webinar. We're going to go through the basic ESA installation and prepare you for some of the simple tasks to get ready on the install of an email security appliance. This webinar is meant for those who are just beginning to install the appliance. More of the generalist type or the partner generalist who have broad knowledge of installation of different security appliances. So let's go ahead and get started. Our agenda begins with the preparation of the site, where you're going to go out to the customer site and a couple of things that you need to do ahead of time. And next we're going to go on to the system setup wizard, where you actually work with the customer, for example, over a WebEx session, and run the installation wizard. This sort of gains the customer's trust and really establishes yourself with them, which is what we want. And then finally at the end is system verification. So let's go ahead and begin with our preparation. So here is our example network. We are not showing any incumbent vendors. For example, our competitors that are in this situation, we're not considering that. We're just going to assume that this is a blank install. Customer needs an email security gateway, and we are going to sell that to them. So we need to verify the MX records that are going to be pointing to our appliance once it gets installed. Let's imagine that we were installing this at a Cisco site. So Cisco was our customer, because I want to verify that the MX records are set up and I'm not going to have any problems once I go ahead and do my installation. I can have unfettered access to the appliance in front of the customer. Let's begin with NSLOOKUP, and I'm going to set type equal to MX, and I'm going to look up cisco.com. Okay, what I see right here is the MX record for the mail exchange that I'm probably going to be sending my email to is the one with preference set to 10, lowest wins, and these other ones above it are just backup. I want to check the A record on this. Let's say this was your customer network, so I'm going to go NSLOOKUP on this particular organization. I'm going to copy this. Okay, so we have this record here, and I'm going to check the A record on the organization. The address, the A record for the mail server, the mail exchange server that I'm looking for, the public address is 173.37.147.230. So I want to look up that. I want to check the pointer record on that, because the pointer records and the A records need to be in agreement. .230. Okay, so the pointer record returns back the fully qualified domain name of the mail server that I'm trying to check out. So good. So I think we're okay. So now that's been verified. What does that mean? That points to the customer's public IP address that is probably on a firewall. Okay, so what's our next step? We're going to network the appliance at the customer site. So this means you'd have to go out and actually physically be there. What I have is kind of an icon that shows an appliance that I would set up. For example, in our laboratory, we have the private interface that is set up to 192.168.10.101. With this gateway, this is the simplest, cleanest installation that you can do, since there's only one default route, one route that you can apply, and that is the default route going out the DMZ of the firewall. So let's go inside of our laboratory and show how you initially network that appliance. So here we are inside the lab. I'm trying to make this as close to a situation as I can for an appliance coming straight out of the box. It's a little bit artificial because this is our laboratory. What I have is the management address. It's set up to 192.168.42.101. Typically, when you receive an appliance from the factory, it's going to be 42.42, and that will be either on the management address or the data 1 address. So what is our goal here? Our goal is to have an address set on the data 1 interface that is connected to the firewall. That private address is going to be accessible from the outside. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start up with a new interface, and I'm going to have to enter the fully qualified domain name for our laboratory's MX record. Okay, and let's see, we're going to make this an IP version 4 address. Yes. And what's the network that we want? So this will be the network that I'll have on the data 1 interface, and it's 192.168.10.101, and 24-bit mask is fine. Would you like to configure this for IPv6? Not at this time. And what is the Ethernet interface? It's going to be data 1. The host name of this appliance is going to be smtp.alpha.com. Do you want a telnet on this interface? Not at this time. No. Do you want to SSH to it? Let's say yes, because I may want access from the outside. Which port you're going to have on it? Take the default, which will be port 22. Do you want FTP on it? It depends. If I need to push the license keys or anything into this interface, I will. But SCP would be better, since I'm going to have external access. So at this point, I'm going to say no for FTP. Do you want cluster communication services? Not unless I'm setting up centralized management, which in this case is no. Do you want HTTP enabled on this interface? Let's say no, because I'm going to be coming from the outside. HTTPS, yes I do. And that'll be in 443. Do you want to enable spam quarantine at this time? Let's say no. And no for this one. And then access to for RSA Enterprise Manager, that'll come at another time. There's other things that I need to set up in here. That's a default route. For default route, do set gateway, and that's going to be IP version 4. Take that one. The gateway for this guy is as it's shown here, 192.168.10.1. That is the gateway. One additional step that we have to do is do the DNS settings. So I'll type this in a DNS config, and I choose to set up general settings. That's my option. And I'm going to, since this is inside my own lab, use my own DNS cache servers, so that'll be option 2. And I have to enter the individual IP addresses that are inside my lab. So in this case, it's just 1. And your specific settings may be different. Okay, and I'm going to choose a priority of 0. So then choose the interface for this traffic. This is going to go out interface number 3 because that's the one that's directly connected. And I'll just take all the other things as the default. And again, I'll commit my changes. So this will be DNS configuration. And sure, I'll take rollback if I have to. Okay, so now let's see if I can ping some things that are in my network. Like for example, myself. smtp.alpha.com. That's the fully qualified domain name for my system that I'm setting up. Okay, so it returns the IP address for this FQDN that is for my MX record. So let's go ahead and see if I can go to that fully qualified domain name. Let's see if I can web to it. So I'm going to web to https smtp.alpha.com. And it says that I can. So in this case, I would be coming from the outside. I would be going through the firewall. I just want to make sure that my customer and I have access to their system. And we are good to go. We're ready to go ahead and run the system setup. Okay, so now we're ready to have a WebEx session with a customer. And by now we should have scheduled this with them. We should be able to describe the customer feature needs so we understand all the things that they want to set up all the license that they wish to purchase. We've already arranged that, at least had temporary license keys. We have the license key file in hand, and we're ready to apply them. In fact, you should go ahead and apply these and have them on the appliance even before you begin, so just to make sure all that stuff is ready to go before you even get on a WebEx session with a customer, if the customer will allow you to install those keys. There's a document that describes all this stuff in detail that I'm doing here, and it's on the partner portal. It's called Proof of Concept in a Box. So if you want more details that expand way beyond what we're doing here, because this is done just briefly, then go ahead and consult that. So that said, let's go ahead and get started with configuring our appliance. So now we're on a WebEx session with the customer in the laboratory. So you can actually log in together with him or her and have them drive this process, or you can do it for them. Let's look at some of the things of interest. So I'm going to look at my system status. In this case, it's async.os 8.5.6-062. This is a C00V, which it's a virtual appliance. Your appliance could be different, or you could be using a physical appliance. Doesn't matter, the interface will look just like this. And I'm going to come over here to feature keys and note the feature keys that have been installed. What I've done here prior to this is gone ahead and installed the license file into this appliance. You can go through the system setup instructions for a virtual appliance or physical appliance, and it'll talk to you about getting the license keys ahead of time. The process is a little bit different for virtual versus physical. Okay, to run the wizard, you go to System Administration, System Setup Wizard, and I'll go ahead and start at this point. So the default host name for this appliance is, we're going to leave it at management.alpha.com, and I'm going to send alerts to, in this case, it's Alan at exchange.alpha.com. And if I want to send scheduled reports, I can. You can set it up here or later on. And these are my time settings. We're on Pacific time. Set my NTP server, whatever it's going to be, and then enter my password. Okay, now down here, Cinder-based network participation allows Cisco Ironport to gather a report, limited data on email to Cinder-based in order to identify and stop email-based threats. If your customers are interested in what is shared, they can go to its online documentation, and it'll describe exactly what is shared off to Cisco if they opt into this process. We encourage the customers to do this. The other is auto support. Send alerts and weekly status reports to Cisco Ironport customer support. These are the alerts that would be going to the system administrator yourself. It's just a copy that goes to Cisco, or it's beneficial to your customer because you can find out if there's a problem before it starts. Next, let's go over to our network integration. Starts at the IP4 gateway. It's already been set by us earlier. We previously configured the Data1 interface and set the fully qualified host name, which is good. The MX record points to this host name, or at least the public address that this address is natted to. Now we want to go on to accepting email. Okay. Earlier in the network diagram that we showed you before, we listed some mail servers that were underneath the firewall. One of them was called exchange.alpha.com, and that one had an IP address of 172.20.0.10. Okay, this is the fully qualified domain name for that particular server, and this is the IP address for it. What we're writing here is two things. We're populating what's called the recipient address table, or RAT. And that is basically listing the domains down inside your organization that you can send email to. In other words, there has to be an email address that comes after the @ symbol that specifies this domain. If that string is not in the email address after the @ symbol, then we will drop it. The other thing is these two records taken together form what's called the SMTP route. Both of those are critical, and we'll show you those a little bit later. Now there's another server that I want to send to, and that's notes.alpha.com, and its IP address is 172.20.0.20. Now that takes care of email that's heading inbound from the outside. What if these servers want to send email outbound through the email security appliance? In other words, we want our outbound mail to be filtered by the appliance, just like our inbound mail is. In that case, you need to specify which organizations or which servers are going to be relaying. So I'm going to list this by IP address. I'll take this one. And I also need to specify the mask for it. For this, it's a reverse mask. You need to specify that only this particular IP address is going to get out through your gateway. And any other addresses like .11 or .9 are not going to get out. So you take that mask all the way to 32 bits. And then we do the same thing for this other address. Go ahead and paste that in, /32. All the other settings are fine. If we wanted to network a second data 2 interface, for example, if we want to set up a multi-homed appliance, we could. But typically that's not the best practice. So we're going to stick with one interface. Down here is the management interface settings. We'll leave those as is. Okay, move over to anti-spam. Here I can enable sender base reputation filtering. This tick mark, which is automatically set up, is basically pulling information back from SIO or sender base about bad or good IP addresses by bad senders based on a reputation score that ranges from -10 to +10. Previous one over here, this one, is for you to submit volunteer information that strengthens that database they were talking about. So it's a give and take. This, we ask you to participate, your customers to participate, and the other one, the other option, allows them to get information back from sender base. Okay, and that would be this one. Again, this is only looking at the source IP address. We do this during the SMTP connection. Nothing has been taken in yet in terms of email. Beyond this line, the information or the content of the email starts coming into the appliance, and we can scan it with the Ironport anti-spam engine, or what we call IPAS. Here you can enable the spam quarantine if you want. You can also turn on intelligent multi-scan. Intelligent multi-scan allows for multiple anti-spam engines working together, or you can enable CloudMark if you want. So there's different options you can go through with your customer. Down here at the bottom, for the next one, for anti-malware, you can enable Sophos or McAfee at this point, or none. These are the signature-based antivirus engines. And down further is anti-malware protection. So the whole thing is listed just like the pipeline is for the email security pipeline that you can watch on another webinar. By default, these are all enabled, including advanced malware protection and also outbreak filters. They are by default all enabled. I'll click next, and then at the very end I get a summary report of what's going on. Who is my alert recipient, the domains that I'm going to send to, the domains that can relay out through my appliance, and so forth. I'll go ahead and install this configuration, and then I can go ahead and continue over to the website. When I come back in, it takes me to an Active Directory wizard. So if I already had my AD settings set up on a table, for example, or your customer did, then you can go ahead and start putting those in at this point. Okay, so let's go back to overview. So now our system is up and running. We don't have anything to show, but at this point the system is working. We have the second interface, the data 2 interface that we set up for the appliance. It's ready to receive email. We just haven't verified it yet or verified our resources. So now that our system is set up, we move on to system verification. So this just to make sure that everything is working okay. there are a couple of points that you should be aware of. These are ports that are or should be open through the firewall. For inbound from the internet, you have to have port 25, and then outbound, you have to have port 25 open, port 80 open. Port 80 needs to be open to gather updates from updates.ironport.com or the sender base and so forth. For outbound, UDP on port 123 and TCP 443. So our updates from Cisco are going to come through 443 and port 80. More of this is available in Appendix C in the ESA configuration guide. And then for inbound, remember that of course we have our mail server. We had in our diagram we had two mail servers down here and our Active Directory server. So for that inbound from this region, if you wanted to have management through the same interface that your data travels through, then you have to have, or you should have, SSH open if that's the way you're going. Port 25 for your mail servers to connect to, UDP, SNMP if you're doing SNMP management. And if you're, in this case, if your management is coming from over here, it could be, you would have HTTPS open as well. And by the way, you can scope the management addresses down to just your servers if you want, and set it up so nobody else can come through this interface to manage it remotely. And then outbound to the internal network, you have to have port 25 open, 160 UDP 162 for SNMP, and TCP 389 for LDAP, or whatever, if it's secure LDAP or whatever Active Directory service you have to have that corresponding port open through the firewall. And then whatever you need for your syslog server. Okay, so let's go ahead and move back into our lab for one final verification. So here we are back in the laboratory again. I'm going to go over to Security Services, Ironport Anti-Spam. So I can see right down here that the system is already connecting to the update server. And this video is being done on July 1st, so it is going out to the update server and getting case updates. And CASE stands for Context Adaptive Scanning Engine. So this particular system is doing fine. Ironport Anti-Spam is getting its updates. Moving down the line to other things, let's go over to Sophos, for example, because we do have Sophos running. If these, by the way, if you're with the customer and it hasn't updated yet, you can force an update to happen right away. If it hasn't already happened, it's really scheduled to happen every 5 minutes. So if you want to hasten that process when you're on the WebEx, you can show them that it is being connected. So here we have some updates. Okay, so we've looked at anti-spam, antivirus, and let's go down to file reputation analysis. Check this guy. This is for our AMP engine. Okay, and in this case, looking at advanced settings, everything seems to be happening okay. Another good log to work with to see something passing through is tail mail _logs. So looking at tail mail logs, so I want to go ahead and send a test email through. We have our own web-based mail service in the laboratory. I'm going to go to it right now. It's over at outside.com, and you would do the same thing if you would just go to your mail service, for example, your mailbox, and send the customer an email, and you can verify that it's working. So this is a testing new operation. Okay, and it's going to be going to Alan at exchange.alpha.com. Remember, that's one of our domains on the inside. Okay, then we'll give us a little space here. Go ahead and send it. Okay, so the email that I sent through the appliance, have it right here. So basically what we have is an email that did reach our email security appliance from Adam. So it is coming from Adam to Alan at exchange.alpha.com. This is testing new operation. Everything was come in and matched on the recipient policy table. The interim verdict on the case engine is negative. So that means it is there is no spam. Spam is negative. The antivirus is clean. The AMP reputation is clean, so it's going through all the engines, and then it was queued for delivery and set up. It looked up the SMTP route for exchange.alpha.com, which is 172.20.0.10 on port 25. This is our sending address for our system. Remember it has one single address to itself, and off it went to the receiving organization. So I go over to the mailbox for exchange.alpha.com, and this is going to be Alan's mailbox. So this is on the inside. Lots of warnings in here, but testing new system operation. Okay, this is the email, the test email we initially sent up. We see all these incoming warnings, and that is the AMP file reputation was having issues as far as it's connecting with the AMP service. If there's any issues on DNS and so forth, the alert recipient will get all these warnings, initially one coming every 60 seconds. So that's something to be aware of, but it's a good thing, because if there's anything that is amiss, it'll let you know. Okay, that's it for a demonstration on basic ESA installation. We thank you very much for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you on future webinars. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.